This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and...
Not the other one. Hello, welcome to episode 66 of Partners in Crime. We have no Mr. Dawes this week. He's not around at the moment, but we do have the incomparable Rachel Amphlett with us again. Hello, Rachel.
Hello there, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Good to have you back as Bob's glamorous stand-in.
I don't know about that. Thank goodness this is on a podcast and not video.
Well, I didn't want to say it.
Back at you.
Well, one announcement I was hoping to do with Bob here is that we are now on Spotify as of this week.
Brilliant.
So Partners in Crime continues its world domination. Yes, we're now listed on Spotify. So if that is one of your listening tools of choice, you can get us on there. Not entirely sure how, but you can.
I think you can just search for you. People will find you if you're on Spotify, Don't worry.
Good. Well, there we go. That was a nice bit of news. Not entirely sure what it means, but I thought that was worth throwing in.
That's really good. At least then you can find, an audience even wider around the world.
Yes, yeah, we can go beyond the Maldives and beyond Madagascar and Nauru and some of the weird places we've somehow managed to penetrate so far in the last year and a half of Partners in Crime.
I was going to say the Maldives sounds actually really nice. Can we do a tour there?
Well, yeah, I was going to say whoever's actually listening to us in the Maldives, if they could perhaps invite us over, would be very nice. It's a little bit selfish that you haven't so far, but
live event and a beach bar, I could cope with that.
Yes, absolutely. But one reader has been in touch, one listener, presumably a reader as well. Hello to Amber Rush, who emailed us a week or so ago and said, we were talking actually, Rachel, I don't know if you heard on one of the previous episodes, about female crime writers and the difference between male and female writers and how we perhaps write differently and you get different things from reading different crime authors based on their gender.
Yep.
Amber said, hello, as a reader I've noticed that women writers writing women focus more on their personal life, whereas male writers don't. Also, I don't really take much notice as to which gender is writing the book. As somebody who volunteers for the police, I primarily look for a realistic book which shows a true representation of crime. And both your books are amazing, just to point out, she says. Of course, referring to me and Bob, not yours. Yeah. in fact, she goes on to say, P.S. If you ever speak to that Rachel Amphlett again, tell her hers are rubbish.
I think Amber has a point, though. It comes down to, when I pick up a book, I don't care who's written it. I just want a good story.
Yeah.
And if it's police procedural, I want it to be, realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess that for me, the realism is something I always aim for, and I speak to a lot of current serving and retired police officers as well. Graham Bartlett, we've had on the show before. I know you speak to him and you've used him before.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, some current officers too. And I always try and make it realistic, but I think the story has to win out. I mean, it can't be too realistic because actual real life policing is pretty boring. You might have a couple of hundred people.
As many of our experts have told us.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of hundred people might be assigned to a case. It's not necessarily going to be someone who is just working on one investigation 24/7 and thinking about it while he drinks his whiskey at home and goes out and interviews all of the suspects himself and visits the scene and pokes it with his biro. And these things tend not to happen as much, but dramatically speaking, work really, really well.
Yeah, and it was something that came up at Newcastle Noir a couple of times when I was there at the beginning of May, and some audience members asked the same thing. What comes first? Do you do all your research and make sure that it's absolutely spot on, or do you write the story? And for me, like you, the story has to come first. And if I'm not, now that I've done a few police procedural books, I kind of know those procedures, but if I come unstuck and I don't know something, I'll continue writing the story, make a note to myself to go and find out about that particular part of a process, and then come back and jot it down once I've got the answers. But at least keep telling the story. And
having Graham Bartlett on speed dial helps.
Yeah. It's probably the only time I use Facebook Messenger.
Yeah.
But talking about the fact about getting the facts right and making things realistic, I think I'm getting worse the more I write these things, because I don't know if you caught the new ITV series Wild Bill that was on Wednesday night.
Not
with
yet.
Rob Lowe.
Any good?
They were For me, no. Look, everyone's got an opinion, right? So if you enjoy, if anyone listening has actually enjoyed the first episode, good. But within the first 15 minutes, I'm watching an assistant chief constable walk down the street in full regalia, speaking to people and solving crimes. It's like, no, really, no. And I was surprised because ITV Studios are known for such great crime dramas such as Endeavour and Vera, etc. And to come out with something like that, I couldn't make up my mind whether they were being tongue-in-cheek or not. So I'll be interested to hear what other people think about that one.
Was there a reason for it, dramatically speaking, or was it seemed to be just gratuitous?
It seemed to be gratuitous at the beginning. I think they were trying to, and let's face it, in a 1 hour, which is really a 45-minute episode, they are trying to cram in so much backstory that I think perhaps it was overladen with information and things like that to set up the series. But I don't know if it's one I'm going to continue watching.
Well, it's been pretty popular, and we do like to do our devil's advocate thing on Partners in Crime. I was speaking to a certain more regular host of Partners in Crime at my birthday bash last week, and the subject of TV series Chernobyl came up, which has been very, very popular on Sky Atlantic, and IMDb have rated that the highest rated TV series of all time. Mr. Dawes wasn't so keen.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I've been reading a lot about
it. Yeah, he can't defend himself. Ooh, good.
So if he comes on next week and claims to love it, he's talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I've been following one of the screenwriters on Twitter about it. He's actually provided the scripts for people to read.
Oh wow.
And I've not done that yet because I'm tossing up whether to watch it or not. I'm not very good with, I think I've said before on here, I'm not very good with horror. It depends how graphic it is. And apparently it's very realistic and well done.
I would highly recommend it. I would highly recommend it. It's an extraordinary story, especially when you realise it was real. I mean, it's 33 years ago, and I mean I've heard a fair bit about it. My mum was about 8 months pregnant with me at the time, and there's all this advice about not being able to hang nappies out on the line. I mean, this is back when you had the old terry cloth nappies and what have you, and everyone in Europe keeping their windows and doors closed and things like that.
Well,
so it was,
I'm older than you, and I was at primary school, at primary school when it happened, and I remember having to keep the windows closed and everything like that. There's a really good book based around the Chernobyl accident that came out a few years ago. Female thriller writer called J.M. Hewitt, and it's called Exclusion Zone. And if anybody's interested she uses the basics of facts with the Chernobyl accident, but then jumps forward to an event that happens, years after that. But she actually went in there to do her research, and you can tell. It's so I'd recommend that for anyone looking for a good read.
Yeah, I had a friend who visited a couple of months back, and he said it's just the most bizarre place on Earth, and he's been to a lot of places on Earth, and he said it was just insane.
Yeah, quite creepy.
Yes, oh god, yes. But yeah, away from creepiness and nuclear explosions and decimating half of Europe, onto some happier things.
Yeah, moving on.
What have you been reading this week, or since we last spoke to you, which has been a little while now?
It has, yeah. I finished reading earlier this week, actually over the weekend, what I think is going to be in my top 3 books of the year. And it's just come out in paperback. It's The Passengers by John Mars. And I'm going to recommend that everyone runs out and buys a copy if they haven't already got one. So I'll read the blurb. I've taken a note out of yours and Bob's book. Here we go. Fasten your seatbelts. The new John Mars thriller is going to be a hell of a ride. A ruthless hacker has targeted 8 driverless cars, setting them on a fatal collision course. If the authorities interfere with the vehicles before they reach their destination, they will explode, killing everyone on board. Now the hacker is insisting that the public and a select jury judge who should live and who should die. It's trial by social media, a popularity contest that will be fought to the death. Set in a world 5 minutes in the future where driverless cars are now the law, this is the gripping, page-turning, high-concept thriller from the best-selling author of The One. And honestly, that was just such a page-turner.
That sounds amazing. The Passengers by John Mars. Sounds a little bit like, concept-wise, kind of reminds me of the film Speed. You remember?
Yes,
that kind of.
That's what I thought. This is a little bit more. It's very well done.
Yeah.
You see the way that he set out the book. You get the social media input as well. So the comments from things what could be Facebook and could be Twitter and the hashtag votes.
Oh, yeah.
The same as people really get into with like whatever a celebrity thing is on at the moment. It's set. Each chapter is set up like that, and it's quite jarring, but. Oh my God, what a page turner. So yeah, that's going straight into probably what would be, if not my top book of 2019, it's going to be in the top 3.
Wow. Well, I am currently buying that on Kobo as we speak.
Good stuff. Don't forget your discount.
No, indeed. Yeah, if you're a new reader to Kobo, if you haven't used them before, then you can use the promo code CRIME at the checkout. They'll give you 90% off. And if you're an existing Kobo customer, you can use the promo code PARTNERS and you'll get 40% off of all your purchases moving forward, which is lovely.
Can't go wrong with that.
Certainly can't, no. Right, I at the moment am reading a book we did mention a couple of weeks ago on the show, the new Peter James book, Dead at First Sight.
Oh, haven't got to that one yet. What's it like?
Well, very good so far. As Peter's stuff always is, I'm literally about 3-4 chapters in, so can't say too much, but enjoying it a lot at the moment. Another book I was going to mention as well, which I have read before, and I was going to get back onto next because it was looking a little bit rainy here this week, and I thought, I want something that's going to remind me of the sunnier times we really should be in June. And I was browsing through my bookcase and I saw a book that I quite remembered. I remember and quite enjoyed reading, actually, called The Critic by Peter May, which is set in southwest France, when an American wine critic is found strung up in a vineyard, dressed in the ceremonial robes of the Order of the Divine Bottle and pickled in wine. It's an Enzo McLeod mystery, which actually reminds me a little bit of an episode that Bob did on Midsummer Murders, where he actually ends up... he plays this TV star, sort of Timmy Mallet type TV star, who ends up being killed by having his head put into a hollowed out television set, which is put on his head, and then filled with red wine.
Hell of a way to go.
Hell of a way to go. Great way to go. But it kind of reminded me of that. And I saw this and I thought, okay, great. A crime book set in southwest France, lovely and warm and when it's rainy here in Bedfordshire, and somebody dying by being pickled in wine. I thought that very much ties in very well with Partners in Crime. And Bob's not here, so the joke didn't quite work. But that's the other one I was going to recommend was The Critic by Peter May.
Who's that? That's Peter May, The Critic, is it? Right, I'm jotting that one down. That sounds like fun.
It is fun.
I've picked up something from my to be read pile that's coming out a little later this year. I trundled off to the Sidmouth Literary Festival on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Couldn't get to the talk with Ruth Ware that I was looking forward to, unfortunately, but I did get there in time to hear Jane Corrie chatting to Anne Cleeves about all things Vera and Shetland. But Jane has a new book out called I Looked Away. Here, I'm gonna cheat again, like you two do, and read the blurb. So you've set the standard.
I know. We lower the standards. We lower the standards. We let other people meet them.
Here, I'll help you take it to a whole new low.
Go for it.
So here we go. This is I Looked Away by Jane Corrie. Every Monday, 49-year-old Ellie looks after her grandson Josh. She loves him more than anyone else in the world. The only thing that can mar her happiness is her husband's affair, but he swears it's over, and Ellie has decided to be thankful for what she's got. Then one day, while she's looking after Josh, her husband gets a call from that woman, and just for a moment, Ellie takes her eyes off her grandson. What happens next will change her life forever, because Ellie is hiding something in her past, and what looks like an accident could start to look like murder.
Ooh. Okay.
So and Jane is lovely. I mean, she's one of the organisers for Sidmouth Literary Festival. She works so hard at getting the word out about crime fiction. So that's her latest one. Looking forward to reading that.
That sounds great. And that was called what? Sorry.
I Looked Away.
Looked Away. Brilliant. Okay, looking forward to that. I also spotted a couple of things in the news this week, or rather, our wonderful producer Moriarty did. She spotted an article on bookriot.com, actually from a couple of weeks ago, written by Elizabeth Cook, which is about crime fiction as self-care.
Interesting term.
Yeah.
To mix with crime fiction.
That's what I thought. That's why it stood out. Elizabeth goes on to say in her article, she says, "You see, crime fiction is self-care for me. It's how I stay relaxed and sink back into myself after a long, tiring day." And she says that when she reads crime, she feels less stressed and happier even. And she then, to be fair to her, does say, "When I put that into words right now, it sounds weird. I wonder if I should feel bad if there's something wrong with me." And then she goes and analyses why she thinks crime fiction is self-care. And this is something I wanted to discuss with you to see if we can kind of come to consensus on this. She says, "Crime fiction helps me appreciate the little things." She says it focuses her mind on the mundane details of people's lives, which she finds relaxing. And she said characters, habits, relationships, daily routines become more interesting as a result. And in the context of murder, she says, these details are not only comforting, but easy to appreciate for the simple pleasures they can offer.
It's an interesting way of putting it, isn't it? Because, as you know, obviously I was a reader years and years before I was a writer. And now when I read crime fiction, I am aware of how other writers are watching people in their day-to-day lives to get a real sense of people's tics, their habits, day-to-day stuff. But also I think with crime fiction, why it's so popular, and for me what I like, is that in most cases the bad guy's going to get caught, justice is going to be served, and that doesn't always happen in real life. So from an escapism point of view, I can see her point.
Especially sociologically and politically at the moment, we need that. We live in some very uncertain times where the bad guys, as you say, don't always get caught, and we're not entirely sure who the bad guys are. So
which is why I think things like crime fiction, police procedurals, thrillers, spy novels, people can sink into those as a form of escapism, knowing that the good guys are going to come out the other end winning.
Hopefully.
Yes,
Elizabeth says, it makes her appreciative of what she otherwise might not have noticed, and it causes her to view her surroundings in a new way. She also says, as you say just there, Rachel, the insular act of reading lets you into a story but keeps you safe, putting you just out of reach of a world full of troubles. And she also touches on the political side of things that we mentioned there. She says, reading crime fiction is a low-stress way for me to reflect on politics and society. I often find myself reading crime novels as critiques of capitalism, and it's actually pretty hard, she says, to find a premise for murder that isn't based on the need or desire for money, some kind of power imbalance, or both.
Yeah, and if you look at the Senior Investigation Officer's Handbook, which is like a police procedural one, there's a list in there of 10 or 12 motives, common motives for crime, and so much of it is power, money, all the rest of it. It's it sounds like a good article. Even
revenge and jealousy are forms of power, of achieving or reclaiming power.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's something that's good to explore, isn't it?
Yes, it's really, really interesting actually, because you get this kind of sentiment from perhaps the literary world that genre fiction doesn't really do anything, and it's only literary fiction that can make people think or that can reflect society and things like that. But it's the more and more I look into it and talk about it, the more I realise it's absolute nonsense. In fact, the reason genre fiction is so popular is not because it avoids those things, but because it does it in a far more accessible way, and it is just as much a political and social commentary, and it's the yin to the yang of the world, just as much as literary fiction, but in a far more accessible way, and a way which is there if you want it to be there, and if you just want a bloody good story, you can just have a bloody good story.
Yeah, exactly. And do we really worry about what literary minded things people think of us? No. Read it for the enjoyment and the escapism.
Exactly, and sell more than 3 books.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But nice one. That's a good article, Moriarty. Well done.
Yes, it is.
I like that.
And another one that I saw, or was pointed towards, from PBS NewsHour, which came out last Saturday. It's a kind of it's a social commentary of crime fiction and how it fits in with politics. It's PBS NewsHour. The article is entitled "How the Good Guy with a Gun Became a Deadly American Fantasy," and I guess in a way putting some of the, not the blame, but the responsibility on crime fiction and on films. In that, this trope, the good guy with a gun, has become commonplace among gun rights activists. It goes into mentioning that it began in the 1920s with the hard-boiled kind of protagonist in American crime fiction, wearing trench coats, smoking cigarettes, not talking much, but honourable, all about justice, and of course armed with a gun. The first hard-boiled detective story is considered to be Three Gun Terry by Carol John Daly, published in Black Mask magazine in May 1923. And of course, then we had Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, kind of making it far more popular as time went on. And the article goes on to say that by the end of the 20th century, the fearless gun-toting good guy had become a cultural hero. So what I wanted to kind of bring up is whether we are, in a way, partially responsible. I mean, we weren't around in the 1920s, so we can't be held completely responsible. But should we, as crime writers, as people providing entertainment out of, let's face it, death and destruction, should we be writing socially responsible crime?
No. Well, there's
two on to the next subject.
There's two parts to my answer. I think it's interesting for me when I get emails from my American readers who are used to people having guns to protect themselves, or they're more common there. Yeah. To then read something like my detective series where my police officers don't have guns. They have to solve these crimes. They have to take on the bad guys without weapons. It's just like a telescopic nightstick, and that's it. And that does take some of my American readers by surprise. On the other hand, when I'm writing my spy novels, given the sort of characters that my good guys come up against, I need them to have a gun. I need them to have a way of protecting themselves. And I think it's a given in that particular subgenre of crime fiction that if you're writing spy novels, there's going to be a gun in there somewhere. Yeah. And perhaps if I wrote about an American detective, of course that detective would have a gun. It's realistic.
Well, you wouldn't have much choice, I suppose, would you, if you were writing that way round? It's I guess it's interesting for me because we have a lot of American listeners. We talk about a lot of American crime as well. So I guess that the views are very different, this side of the pond to the other. I mean, we're well aware here that crime fighting and just general day-to-day stuff can be done very, very easily without the need of a gun at any point. I've never handled or fired a gun, nor have I needed to, and nobody has kind of killed me or my family yet. But in America, of course, the culture is very different. And it may well be that it's a necessity. I don't know. But there's two lines right at the end of this article here by Susanna Lee for PBS NewsHour, which said, "What started as entertainment has turned into a durable American fantasy. Maintaining it has become a deadly American obsession." I mean, it's not something we're going to solve on Partners in Crime.
There's so many facets to it, isn't there? That
Yeah.
I don't think the culture of having guns in films and books is necessarily the problem or the answer.
No.
But it's interesting how it has evolved.
Yeah. It's not something we're going to solve on Partners in Crime. It's something that's been going rattling on for decades in the US and has divided the nation. So
it was interesting though, because when I was living in Australia, their gun laws changed a few years ago, same as they did here.
This is what I was going to ask you, actually. I was going to ask you how it differs over there.
You've still got the licensing, you've still got shooting ranges. You can try some pretty big guns on the shooting ranges. I did. I've never picked up a gun in my life, and I was writing the second or third book in my Dan Taylor series a few years ago, and I got chatting to a chap I worked with whose wife was the Queensland state champion pistol shooting, and he said, "Look, if you want to come out to our gun club at the weekend," he said, "we'll teach you. We'll teach you how to fire a gun so that you know what your character feels when you've got that recoil in your hand. And of course, I snapped up the chance. It's, why wouldn't you? And it was interesting. It was, but I can't say I enjoy it. I thought I could get into it. My grandfather, when he was in the Royal Marines, won all sorts of awards and stuff and competitions for shooting and things. And although I did well, the targets and everything like that, I came away from it thinking, I've got what I need for my research. I don't need to pick up a gun again in my life.
No.
It didn't enamor me to go, yeah, I must go and get one of those and go there, and go there every week and fire at targets, because no, it's strange, isn't it? I think you're right. It's that culture that we haven't grown up with it over here.
No, I suppose that's the thing. We can't see it from their point of view, and they can't see it from our point of view, because you've either grown up in that culture or you haven't, and that's what a culture is. It's not something that is learned or that is replaced. It is what is there, isn't it, within your community and within your life?
Yeah, you learn it through osmosis.
Yeah.
It's a couple of good articles there.
Yeah, well, I thought we would get nice and heavy. As we do. And actually, I don't know what's going on. I had this conversation with Bob on the show last week. We've, for some reason, in the last few weeks, started talking about crime. It used to be we just talk
proper crime.
We just talk about coffee and green tea and and various things that weren't connected with crime at all, and how Bob keeps smashing his car up, and
does he?
We
Still.
Yeah, we would just sit here and have a chat and record it.
Just get him a dodgem.
I know. Yeah, I know. We better not talk about him too much when he's not on the show. He might be listening. What? You never know. Hello, Bob.
Hi, Bob. Nothing to see here. Move along.
Come back next week.
That's right. He better, otherwise we can do it all again.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're in danger of becoming too professional, though. Actually, talking about crime fiction and crime and sociological stuff and American gun laws. I mean,
Yeah, you've got to lower that bar again, mate.
Yeah, we're in danger of turning into the world at one here.
Yeah, perish the thought.
I think we should get back more towards men behaving badly where we were before.
Yeah, definitely, or bottom or something like that.
That's it. Well, speaking of bottom, that's about it for me this week. I don't know if you've got anything else you wanted to bring up or go through.
No, I'm all good. I'm going to get back to my my word count and my reading today. I'm going to try and smash through a couple of the books that are on my to-be-read pile, which keeps growing because I forgot how cheap books are.
How quickly do you read?
I try.
I mean, you're not going to smash through a couple today, literally, are you?
No,
I was going to say.
I'm lucky if I get through 3 or 4 chapters a night, but if it's something that's really cracking, like that Passengers, I stayed up until 1 o'clock on Sunday to finish that. It was just awesome.
Well, I'm going to go and buy that now and complete my purchase at Kobo using my partner's discount code, which I've decided I'm actually going to use now. And I'm going to get that.
How long has it taken you?
I feel bad using it. I'm hosting the show, which has got that exclusive discount for Kobo customers. I feel a bit bad using it myself, but I'm going to.
Well, remind people what the code is.
It's partners. If you're an existing Kobo customer, if you've bought an ebook from Kobo before, it's partners, or in capital letters. If you've not bought a book from Kobo before, use the promo code CRIME, and I'll give you 90% off at the checkout. And you don't need an e-reader or anything like that. I have got one. They're very, very good, but you can read on your mobile phone or your tablet or your computer or basically wherever you're listening to this on. You've got the free Kobo app you can use.
Good job you got Bob coming back next week, because I can't do the whistle.
Oh yes, I forgot about the whistle. I'm not going to do one either.
No, it's just it'll just get messy if I try.
Well, have a good week. Try not to kill anybody, and hopefully we'll see you back here at some point soon.
Take care. Thanks for having me.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and
not the other one.
And produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Bache. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.